process of adopting a little boy from South Korea. We were matched with him on April 1st, and now we're just waiting to bring him home. When the social worker told me, well, he was born on this day, I was like, if I did not miscarriage, it would have been the exact year, day, month, exactly. That's my child.
I was 3 months old when I was adopted from South Korea. I am half black, half Korean, and from what I know, that was the reason why I was given up by my mother for adoption, is because I was a mixed child.
From what I understand, why my birth mother decided to place me was because she was very, very poor, and the society and culture at that time didn't really accept children that were born out of wedlock. And so she decided, because of her circumstances, she already had 2 sons that were a little older than me, that she couldn't afford to keep me.
We got matched.
Well, first I tried calling him, but he was in a meeting, so he couldn't get the phone call. And then I'm like text messaging him. I said, it's a boy. You called me so fast.
I got the text and I left my meeting.
South Korea does have a quota where they only allow so many children for adoption purposes.
Years ago, I guess there were some comments made about South Korea being baby exporters. Essentially what they did is they limited the number of children that can leave the country every year.
It's just frustrating because nobody wins in this situation. This little face looking at you in the pictures, and he's learning who mommy and daddy is. He's getting a little English in there.
The first few months, I think were pretty exciting.
We were on cloud 9. I mean, we had his room done and ready, and books and toys and clothes, and I was a new mommy. I went shopping. We were very excited.
But then on the other side, we weren't necessarily prepared for the wait. We went from being extremely excited and kind of on this high to not so much.
I grew up in a religious family, and I always looked at it as a blessing. I was taught to look at it as a blessing that I got the family that I got. I knew that had I stayed in Korea and not been adopted by the parents that I was adopted by, that my life would have been very different and probably not in a positive way.
Growing up as an adoptee, especially an international adoptee, I had a lot of self-esteem issues, like kids in elementary school would call me flat face, and Chinese, Japanese, look at these, and they would point at my eyes. It was hard growing up because I always just wanted to fit in and to belong and for kids to like me.
Growing up, I always identified as being black. My parents are Caucasian. I had major identity issues when I got into high school. I didn't know myself, who I was, where I came from. Hair was a big issue for me. My mom has straight hair, and she didn't understand how to take care of my hair. And so my hair always looked really bad growing up. Girls literally used to pull my hair and rip my hair out of my head. They called me rough and tough with your afro puff is what they used to call me. I used to run home crying every day.
Both of my adoptive parents are Caucasian, and we grew up in a couple different places, and they weren't very diverse. So I grew up looking Asian, and I wanted to look anything but Asian. That whole concept of me wanting to look different than I really did probably carried on into my early college years. In my later college years is when I finally started to build my self-esteem.
We get updates probably about monthly. We send a package every month, so he'll go in to the agency there and pick up his package. And when he does, they take pictures and send those pictures to us.
I have had the opportunity to meet him. Unfortunately, Brad couldn't come. It was last August. I was in Korea for a different reason. It was an inaugural program at a children's home, and I was doing that for a week. And while I was in Korea, Eastern did allow me to have an hour visit with him. They told me the day before I flew out that I couldn't have the visit. They're like, okay, can you be here Friday at 10 a.m.? I'm like, yes, I'll be right there. How I felt after meeting him and while meeting him, I only was thinking of the positives. I wanted a good moment, and I got that good moment. It didn't really hit me, the negative parts of it, until I was actually getting on the plane coming home without him. It was a very bittersweet time, but I think having that visit helped strengthen me to keep going on. The flight home was rough because I really did feel like I left him behind. But I knew I was coming back, and I just kept thinking, I'll be back, it won't be much longer, Well, yeah, that's been almost a year since that visit.
Culturally, thinking about my Korean heritage, I'd say more when I got out of college, because I went to a historically black college, so I was completely immersed in my African American side. When I got out of college and started in the working world, I guess I still felt like I was missing something. People constantly ask me, you know, what I'm mixed with, why I look the way that I look. If I straighten my hair, then I look very different. And so people always ask, oh, do you speak Korean? Have you had Korean food? Do you cook? You know, all these things. And it's kind of funny because I'm insecure about those types of questions. So then I did get curious about Korean culture and just kind of exploring that side of me, because it's mine, whether Koreans want to admit it or not.
He has a Korean name. We have some challenges actually pronouncing it. Give it a try. From what we've heard, we believe it's pronounced Yok, but his name translated means great.
His American name is going to be Darren, which means the same as his Korean name. So if you translate both his first name and his middle name, he'll be great. We figured for schools and for simplicity, Darren would be much easier to pronounce, considering we're having challenges pronouncing his Korean name.
As he grows older, he'll figure out his identity and what
does he want,
called.
and we'll just, whatever he wants at that point, we'll be able to do for him.
As far as being interested in searching for my birth family, it's always been on my mind. I can't say that there's ever been a time when I've not been curious about who they are. I think it's important for adoptees to know who their birth parents are also, because there's medical history that needs to be uncovered for anybody, really. For me personally, I do have a medical condition. I have epilepsy. And the doctors tell me that in some cases it's hereditary, but often it's not. But who's to know whether mine could have been or it's not? I don't know, because there's a big question mark as to any, health issues that could come up in the future. When I was diagnosed, it got me thinking, could something else come up in the future? As far as searching for my birth parents, I actually have more of an interest in finding my birth father than finding my birth mother. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, from what I know, he's an American. He was a U.S. soldier in the Army. And I don't know if he even knew that I ever existed. From what I've found so far, she did not leave his real name. She left John Smith. So in order for me to ever even try to find him, I've got to find her. So that's kind of a struggle that I deal with in a search at all, is that I got to go find the mom to find the dad. Speaking to my my parents about searching for my birth family, I have not started that conversation with them yet. I don't want to hurt them. I don't know if it will hurt them. I like to think that it won't, but I don't know. I can't predict how they would react to that.
I can remember ever since I was probably early teens that I was so pretty much obsessed with meeting my birth mom. I mean, anytime I would see another Asian lady or Asian kid, I would think maybe I'm somehow related to her. I don't know. So I always wanted to know who I looked like, where I came from, and that whole idea of all these questions that are unanswered about my past made me feel like I was just missing something in my life, and I just felt like I wouldn't be complete until I met her. My parents finally decided it would be a good time for us to go on a homeland tour to Korea, and there was other adoptive families with us as well. I was really, really lucky that my birth mom decided to meet with me, and she brought her sister along for support. And I think the first time that I met her, I could feel her love, and it was amazing. I hadn't seen her in 17 years. And it was very much the closure that I needed. And I began the healing, the real healing of closing that wound. I still think a lot of adoptees carry pain with them the rest of their life. It's just a matter of how much we tap into it and how much we let that control our emotions.
Yep, so we were matched on April 1st of 2011 and waited about 16 months before we actually got the call to travel.
It was a later flight, but we were at the airport by lunchtime when we waited and we waited and we waited somewhere. We were just way too excited. We had to go right now.
It's about 4 a.m. in Seoul. We finally touched down. Good news is the airplane landed 30 minutes early. Bad news is that was 3:30 in the morning in Seoul, so we're not quite sure what to go do yet, but we are ready to start our adventure.
At North Seoul Tower, they have an area with lock of love is what they call it. Around that area, everyone puts locks.
I think with the locks of love, I think probably the most interesting thing was how long it took us to actually find the spot. You try to figure out how somebody could find their lock when they go back years later. That was a good memory.
Well, good Wednesday morning. We're about 20 minutes away until we get into a taxi and head over to the agency to go get our little boy. We are so excited and so ready to have him join our family.
When we first met him, they took us to a kind of kitchen area, and like I said, I really can't even remember how I was feeling at that time. I mean, it was unreal. And you're sitting there, seeing him for the first time, and just like I said, time didn't matter.
He responded very well to us while we were at Eastern. He was a little ball of fire and just went running around and just playing. It didn't start getting a little iffy until about the end of the meeting when we knew it was about ready to be over, and we all walked out to the van.
And all I really remember is somebody sticking their arms out. I don't know who it was. We took him, he started screaming his head off, and they slammed the door and off they drove. I mean, that was probably the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever gone through.
And the only thing I remember seeing is the foster father's face through the window and how sad he looked. Oh.
He was in tears. I mean, that was hard.
He cried most of the way back to the hotel. And when we got back to the hotel, the two of them sat on the couch for a little while. He was taking it in. And after some time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, then he decided to venture around the hotel room and see what trouble he could get into. Then he turned into a happy little boy. The day we flew out, it was a very bittersweet day.
There were probably more emotions on the day we were leaving than when we had gotten there.
We were so happy. We were going to be going home with our son. And, it's our family. We're starting our family. But I felt so sad.
Just knowing that, we're bringing him home and bringing him away from, his culture, that was hard.
And the foster family, I can't imagine the heartache that they went through and are going through. So I really was thinking about everybody, and so it was hard to be happy because there was so much sadness too. brought him home. He's a very cautious little boy. He soaks everything in. He's quiet and checks out his surroundings. But once he's comfortable in his surroundings, watch out.
He's definitely a smart kid. You know, he picks up everything fast. You know, there are things that we've said to him that there's no way we could expect him to understand, and he'll respond.
What's this one? Tired. Tired?
Who's tired?
Who's tired?
Daddy.
Is Daddy tired?
Daddy
Is
tired?
this Daddy tired?
Huh?
He's picking up English faster than I could expect. I mean, I would have thought that that would have been a challenge for him.
I absolutely feel hurt that, you know, me being a child of a Korean woman and potentially not being embraced because I am mixed, that is the most hurtful thing ever. It's devastating. It's made me very apprehensive about going to Korea, about searching, about just everything, because like I think that any person ultimately just wants to be accepted. So it's not a good feeling at all.
I think as an adoptee, a lot of us go through what we would call separation anxiety. For me, I can remember the first instance when I was in 5th grade, and I thought my parents would send me back to South Korea if I didn't get straight excellence. So I had this huge fear that I was going to be abandoned again.
Separation anxiety, I do feel that I have experienced some of that growing up. It is harder for me to develop trusting relationships with people outside of my parents. They are pretty much the only people that I trust fully. It has affected me. I expect that people are going to leave or abandon me eventually. So usually I react in ways that aren't necessarily healthy, like I'll leave before they can leave. That's usually the routine, just because I don't ever want to get left.
He has experienced some separation anxiety. He did start experiencing some night terrors, and the evenings and nighttime has been a struggle and still is a struggle. During the day, he's fine and doesn't appear to have any grief symptoms or separation anxiety. I believe most of it is at night when we try to start winding down for the evening, start going to bed. He does not want to go to bed. He starts crying. We have to be really, really close to him. Daddy has to be holding him. He can't sleep more than 4 hours at a time without waking up crying. And we've been home now just over 10 weeks. And the night is still a struggle. He needs to cry. I mean, he's gone through a lot and he needs to cry. He needs to grieve.
I think my overall thoughts on adoption is that I think it's a beautiful thing. I just think it's important for everyone to know that while it's beautiful and very wonderful, there's also pain involved because it's a separation between a birth mother and her child. I think when you're adopted, you go through the 5 stages of grief. And I definitely went through all of those things when I was growing up. And I was really lucky because my parents let me feel and talk about what I was going through as an adoptee. I just think it's really important for adoptive parents to know how vital it is for adoptive kids to know that it's okay to talk about being adopted, to feel sad, to feel happy or angry or resentful or fearful, especially about the idea of being left.
My feelings towards adoption go positive and negative. I think that it can be a beautiful and good thing, but also I think that it can have a very negative impact on people. I think that every adoption needs to be treated with a lot of care.
I feel really excited for the way adoption is today because of the push towards having open adoption within the domestic families. Up until my mid-20s was I would always look for other people's praise and affection and attention and love to fill that void that I had inside of me. And now I'm learning how to fill it up myself. But I think a lot of it is because of being adopted and essentially having that idea that your own birth mother was able to give you up. So it almost makes you feel like, well, I was unlovable even when I was very little. So now these kids hopefully will grow up knowing that isn't the case if they know their birth family as well. Had I had that option, I might have turned out differently or felt differently growing up, or I could have been happier. I'm happy now, but I think when I was younger, I definitely showed or acted that I was happy on the outside, and on the inside, I was in a lot of pain. It was because I didn't know a lot about myself. Plus, the whole idea of also separating a child from its birth mother and also its culture is another added element to the whole issue of what pain adoption does bring. Well, what if I wasn't adopted? And what would my life be like in that other country that I came from? I think with adoption, I'm also really excited about how everything is becoming much more informed about adoption, whereas before there wasn't a lot of literature or people who studied adoption or were adoption therapist specialists or support groups. And I think just having the knowledge and people speaking out about adoption is really, really important. And I hope that will just make us learn more and more and make it easier and healthier for kids growing up in adoptive families, as well as for the adoptive parents too, because they also go through quite a bit as well.
The whole experience has been a roller coaster. It's been up and down, but in the end, I wouldn't change it for anything. He's a beautiful, loving boy, and I can't imagine life without him.
Our life has changed dramatically. I mean, it all revolves around him now. You know what? That's okay.
I mean, look at him. I can't not love him. But he's too busy now on his phone to have time with mom and daddy.
Yeah.
I still feel really, really blessed and even lucky to be adoptive and to be raised by the parents that I was raised by, because I have no doubt of their love for me. And I think it's really made me be very open-minded about things and to know that love isn't just blood, it's family. Family is who your parents are, who you're raised by. And I wouldn't have asked for anyone else.
We're having a big party to welcome Darren home to the family, and we've got all our friends and family here to help us celebrate. I'm actually very happy to have everybody here.
I second that.
Yeah, it's gonna get, you know, all these people have been, you know, here for the ride, and you know, it's good for them to see him and get to meet him.
The whole roller coaster of the wait, I mean, the whole 16-month wait, it's worth it. When you look at him when he wakes up in the morning or he's sleeping and you know he's giggling his head off, I couldn't change it for the world. You know, I'd go through the wait for him